That was absolutely insane. That was my first thought after clicking off the episode. Well, after the thought of, wow, this episode was so short. But runtime quibbles aside, this episode of the season really nailed so many things right for me. And the acting from everyone, especially John Cena, was off the charts. And there were so many funny, impactful, and thrilling moments from this week's episode. But before we start breaking it all down, please make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. This is a small channel, so every support truly helps. And also note that there will be full spoilers ahead. So if you haven't watched the episode already, now's your last chance to click off. And now, with all this introduction stuff covered, without further ado, let's dive right into Peacemaker Episode 7, Like a Thief in the Night. We start off right away where we left off with Chris and Harcourt inside the alternate Argus, and I really once again applaud Gunn and the crew for crafting such great opening scenes all the time. I mean, with this scene where that was with the gag Chris not noticing the mural of Hitler, or just the hilarious nature of them running as the intro starts winding up. I mean, it's just fun filmmaking, and like I said last week, the intro of Award by Foxy's Shazam, it really is just entertaining and always supports these opening scenes so well because the build up to the needle drop is just satisfying every single time. And if you just look at what the crew said behind the scenes, the effort they put into the intro sequence really is astonishing. And yeah, we then move on back to Adrian, and I also love, besides the excellent music choice that Gunn always provides, that he so effortlessly switches between humorous and serious moments so well. And just the idea of these alternate Adrians and their banter is so funny, but we also instantly get devoted to the stakes of the story because their writing is just so efficient and strong as they start to talk about Adebayo and the scene with her running that picks up from last episode. I really didn't like the way this particular scene was shot with the shaking nature of the camera. I felt like it was meant to kind of add to the fact that this is a tense and nerve-wracking sequence, but I really didn't like it all that much. And the fact that the mob that's chasing Adebayo just jumps in the pool with her instead of going out to the side is incredibly dumb. I mean, Adebayo is understandably scared. It might not be making the right decisions, but the mob felt outright cartoonish, just jumping in the pool, going after her, but whatever. Judomaster saving Adebayo was epic, and their conversations after were really interesting to me. I feel like last week's episode was focused on Adrian and Harcourt the most, and this week's episode focused on Judomaster, Auggie, and Chris the most, and I really like the fact that we get some spotlight specifically on Judomaster. And this is the first episode of the 15 we have seen out of the show so far, where I really feel like we get some major screen time from him. And we get to see some fun bonding moments with him as he and Adebayo play Scrabble. And for me personally, I'm really down for the idea that Judomaster joining the 11th Street Kids in the future. But, I mean, that's if the crew is still together by the end of the season. And we then get to see one of my favorite scenes this episode with Chris and Harcourt on the bike. And man, I really am not a shipper or in particularly all that interested in most romantic plot lines in media, but I really think that the chemistry that these two have is so good, and I also think that is credit to the writing from Gunn. That's been excellent, and the truly amazing acting, I think that comes from both John Cena and Jennifer Holland, but just the fact that we invested so many hours across 15 episodes thus far that's been slowly building their relationship up. At the core, this is one of the major plot lines that this season is trying to tell. Can these two broken individuals piece themselves back together with the love of each other? And I really felt like that was kind of cheesy, but also just really sweet, and that build-up was so well paid off with them in this motorcycle scene. Once Harcourt sees the police car, she senses that trouble and most likely death is approaching, so she really wants to show her love and confirm that to Chris and hugs him from behind. And the expression that Cena portrays afterward and the music that's playing is just also well done. But after that scene, we move to them meeting Auggie and Keith, and this episode really does spotlight Auggie. Seeing him not be this hero of this dimension, but also not a twisted individual as a Nazi is really fascinating, and I just love the fact that James Gunn likes to portray a lot of his characters be in these gray areas. Yes, Auggie is not this anti-hero, but he in the end hasn't really done much to change his world, and instead being one of the quote-unquote heroes when he is in a Nazi dimension. But I also think that his plotline is also going to be important sometime later, because I haven't seen a lot of people catch the line he says to Keith in the middle of the episode, where he says, we need to find and stop the party of these, alternate people, because if the police catch wind of their QUC, quantum unfolding chamber, they will be in trouble, and all of their work will go down the toilet. So I'm really interested in what he and Keith were planning with the QUC, and I'm really interested if he actually met our Auggie, since he also says he met his doppelganger. And finally, I'm really interested that Keith does seem to agree with these Nazi ideals, but also is in support of whatever his dad is doing. So I'm really interested if the show will explore the line with that. And we see everything break loose as Adrian kills Auggie. And honestly, I'm pretty angry with him for that, but whatever. We then move on to the big action sequence with Detective Fitzgibbon leading charge and trying to arrest the people in the house. By the way, Gunn mentioned the Peacemaker Vigil podcast that originally Myrn was supposed to be in this episode as a leader of the Sons of Liberty, like I predicted, but that didn't happen. But yeah. But getting back to the action sequence, we finally end up with a dramatic climax that this episode crescendoed into. We see Keith and Chris fight, and the action in this episode is so good, and you can really feel every single punch and what this means emotionally and physically to Chris. In the scene where everyone's trying to kill Keith is messed up, like Chris points out later. This entire climax is so tragic in almost like a Shakespearean sense, and seeing the absolutely incredible acting John Cena produces here is really, really well done. And honestly, I could potentially see that scene as a contender for the Emmys if HBO and DC ever pushes this show out, because that was one of the best performances in television this past year I have watched. And I'm not being hyperbolic, I think, when I say that. Seeing Chris go through his utter tragedy is really emotional to watch, and like I said, it's almost Shakespearean-like. We then move to the end of the episode where Chris turns himself in, and we are back to where we basically started with the Suicide Squad, where Chris is in jail. We have gotten full circle in a way, and yeah, I'll discuss more about Rick Flag, the QC, and some predictions I have for the finale in a later video. Probably going to be a prediction video if I can complete that before the last episode of Peacemaker drops on Thursday night. And I think I can, so stay tuned for that. And once again, please make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. This episode really was absolutely fantastic, and I really felt like they had channeled the high-octane adventure that just had everything. I can't wait for the finale with how good this episode was. And honestly, I think that it might top episode 6 for me. It might be a contender to be my favorite Peacemaker episode across all 2 seasons. But yeah, please let me know your thoughts on this latest episode of Peacemaker down below. And I'm Owen. This is Owen Talks Movies. Thanks for listening.